So if I never hear the Spin Doctor's Two Princes ever again in my life, I'm entirely fine with that because they were awful, and that song is terrible. They were just awful. Sorry, I had to get that off my chest. Um, it keeps coming on the radio at work, the piped-in radio at work, and boy, I could do without that. Another day, another whole set of things on my brain. I cannot, for the life of me, understand how people can continue to put up with the global income inequality, the wealth shift to the uber wealthy, the elite. I want to be a good consumer. I want to be a good consumer because a good consumer drives the economy. I want to be a good consumer, but I can't because I mean I make enough to live, okay? But I can't be a good consumer because I can't buy all the shit that I want to buy. Now, I'm not an extravagant person. You could give me $1 million cash and I could pretty much survive the rest of my life because I don't need much. And I'm not one of those people that if I'm given a finite amount of money and said, here, you got to live on this, I'm not going to go hog wild and buy a bunch of stupid shit and spend my money in stupid ways. But look at someone like myself. I make over 30 a year, okay? Not an amazing amount of money. I've made a lot more. I've made a lot less. I'll get to you in a minute. Let's take 30 grand a year and the fact that just that number, I can live on that. I know how to live on that. You give me $1 million. Let's say I decide to live on 50 grand a year. Okay, that's me not buying a house, paying rent. That's me not buying a new car anytime soon because I really don't need one. I have a nice car, a decent car, relatively new. 50 grand a year. You know, after taxes or whatever. Again, this $1 million, this hypothetical $1 million is after taxes. It's cash. It's in my hand. I can put it in the bank. I can do whatever and not pay taxes on it or whatever. Let's say 50 grand a year is what I decide to live on. 10 years is 500 grand. 20 years is your $1 million. Okay? 20 years. I'm 48 years old. That would put me to 68. Again, 50 grand a year. I've been very successful and capable of living on much less. So I can stretch that very easily. Let's say that my average is 30 grand a year. 10 years is 300. 20 years is 600,000. That would put me at 68. I still have 400 grand left. How much money do you fucking need to live for the rest of your life? It's ridiculous that there are people who make 50, 100, $200 million a year. It is unconscionable that there are multi-billionaires on this planet, and there are people who make less than $1 a day, or zero. They make zero. Well, they live on zero. It's ridiculous. It really is absolutely fucking ridiculous. If we don't change that, a lot of bad things are going to happen. The best thing I think that could happen would be some type of revolution. I don't really see it because the ones that have the wealth now, it's so lopsided that if the poor rose up and in some way demanded by force for equality, for better income equality. It doesn't necessarily mean that everybody makes the same or anything like that. I'm talking about better. If the poor tried to rise up and make that happen, they would get stomped, literally just stomped, because the wealthy own the government and the wealthy could control the military. Hell, they could hire their own private army. You take the Koch brothers and how many multi-millions, probably billions that they're worth. If they decided to, they could take 10% of their wealth. 10%. Let's get crazy, say 15% of their wealth. And hire an army and arm them and train them and give them whatever. 15% of their wealth would be an army large enough to control whatever they wanted, to go into any African country and squash it, to go over to Asia or the Middle East and do whatever the hell they wanted. And if any government tried to put them down, they just use their wealth and influence and buy their way out of it. Imagine if a few of them got together. The Warren Buffetts, not even the Warren Buffetts, the Roger Ailes, the Fox guy, and a bunch of people who think very differently than me, mind you, who are not very progressive, who are very interested in keeping things as status quo and not having the poor and disenfranchised gain anything. Imagine if a few of those guys that are just obnoxiously wealthy got together and worked together with this private force. They could take over a country. And I don't mean, Lithuania. I mean a country. Big one. Easily. They could do it without forces. They could do it economically. So NASA came out with this report basically saying that we're fucked. That we're unsustainable. We're just not going to make it. We've got a few decades left in us. And society's just going to crumble. I'm probably going to be alive for it. I think. I don't know. It depends. I could get diagnosed with ass cancer tomorrow. Who knows? It would be an interesting time to see the fall of a civilization, of a global civilization. Basically, it would be a reset. What I think is going to happen probably before that is there's going to be some kind of technological breakthrough that manual labor in general will be taken over by machines, robots, if you will. And if everything goes right, none of us work, they'll have to figure out a new way for us to live. Yeah. It's going to get a little crazy. And the biggest thing we need to do right now is stop having babies. Because the planet can't hang. It can't hang at all. And we're going to outgrow it. I think the NASA thing says that we really need 3 Earths to sustain what we are right now. Raw materials being the main thing. Anyway, 3 Earths. My God. Stop having babies, people. Have one to replace your 2. And do that for the next 20 years. Reduce the population down. That's the answer. Nobody will ever talk about it, but that's the answer. That is the answer. It's the only way we can sustain it. Until we get a better handle on things like food, energy, and things like that. Until we perfect the stuff that we've got going on. Until we get some kind of miracle energy thing where we're not sucking oil out of the ground. As soon as we can get off that teat, as soon as we can get off of oil, I think the tide could turn, but I don't see us doing it anytime soon. Everything has oil, everything. The wires that are transmitting this over the internet, the outside of them, it may be metal inside, but it's plastic on the outside, and that's made from oil. The computer that we're watching this on, or I'm doing this on, made of oil. I look around my room and just everything is plastic, which is all made from oil. And we got to figure it out. If we don't, we're screwed. And I'm way over my usual time. Sorry about that. Had to go. Had to randomly spout. So anyway, stay beautiful and be good to each other.